The game of golf has existed for more than 500 years. Empires have risen and fallen. Technologies have transformed the world. Entire sports have been invented from scratch. And for almost all of that 500 years, golf barely changed at all. It was a game with a small audience, modest prize money, scarce sponsorships. Outside a handful of legends, professional golfers were nowhere close to household names. Then one player showed up, and within a few years, the entire business of golf broke wide open. Television ratings exploded. Purses doubled, then doubled again. Companies started spending hundreds of millions of dollars just to be associated with this one athlete. And millions of kids who had never even watched a full round of golf suddenly wanted a set of clubs. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how one shaky Thursday morning at Augusta National in 1997 rewired the economics of an entire sport, and why nearly everything in modern golf, from the size of a PGA Tour paycheck to the driver sitting in your bag right now, still traces back to that single week. This is the story of how Tiger Woods changed golf forever. And the twist is, it almost didn't happen the way most people remember it. Let's get into it. To understand what Tiger changed, you first have to understand what golf actually looked like before he showed up. By the early 1990s, professional golf was respected, but it wasn't a cultural phenomenon. The biggest names in the sport were legends like Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, Tom Watson, and Greg Norman, incredible golfers. But golf itself still carried a reputation as an exclusive, closed-off sport. Country clubs were viewed as places for wealthy members only. Young athletes gravitated toward basketball, football, baseball instead. Golf was slower, older, less diverse, and to a lot of people, frankly, less exciting. Television reflected that reality. Major championships pulled solid audiences, but regular PGA Tour events rarely dominated the sports conversation. The money reflected it too. Winning a tour event was prestigious, but it wasn't life-changing the way it is today. Some of the best golfers in the world earn less in an entire season than modern professionals now make in a single week. Golf wasn't struggling. It just hadn't found its ceiling yet. But here's the thing. None of that explains what was about to happen. Because a teenager from California was already doing things that shouldn't have been possible, and nobody was ready for what came next. At just 2 years old, Tiger Woods appeared on national television showing off a golf swing that looked impossibly polished for a toddler. As he grew older, the stories only got harder to believe. Junior tournaments, then more junior tournaments, then amateur championships one after another, until the rest of that age group basically stopped competing for the same trophies. By the time he reached college, people were already convinced they were watching the future of the sport. But not even the biggest believers could have predicted what happened next. In 1996, Tiger Woods turned professional, and the announcement became national news before he'd won a single tour event, which almost never happens in golf. Companies immediately sensed something different about him. Charismatic, confident, explosive. A swing that generated speed nobody had really seen before, paired with an intensity that made even seasoned pros a little uneasy standing next to him on the range. Most importantly, people who had never cared about golf in their lives suddenly wanted to watch him play it. That combination is incredibly rare. Sports produce great athletes constantly. Very few ever become cultural events. Tiger became one almost overnight, before he'd even won a major. And then came Augusta. The 1997 Masters wasn't supposed to change sports history. Tiger entered the week as an exciting young player, sure, but winning at Augusta National in only his second Masters appearance seemed like a stretch. The course had a reputation for humbling far more experienced champions, chewing up confident young players and spitting out a completely different leaderboard by Sunday. Here's the part that's almost hard to believe, given how the week started. Tiger opened Thursday with a shaky front nine, well over par, the kind of start that usually ends a tournament before it begins, the kind of round that has commentators quietly writing a player off before lunch. Then something clicked. Over the next 3.5 rounds, he played a level of golf the sport had rarely seen. Every drive longer, every iron shot more effortless, every putt more inevitable. By Sunday, the tournament wasn't even close. Tiger won by 12 strokes. Still one of the most dominant victories in major championship history. But something bigger than the leaderboard was happening. Millions of people who'd never spent a Sunday watching golf were glued to their televisions. Newspapers ran his picture on front pages that had never once mentioned a golfer. Golf had always been popular. Now, for the first time, it was becoming mainstream. And that shift was about to rewrite the entire business model underneath it. Television executives noticed something remarkable almost immediately. Whenever Tiger played, people watched. Not just golf fans, everyone. Casual viewers, families, people who couldn't tell you the difference between a birdie and a bogey. Tiger wasn't just competing in tournaments anymore, he was creating television events. Ratings climbed whenever his name sat near the top of the leaderboard. Entire Sunday broadcasts became must-watch television because viewers genuinely believed something unforgettable might happen, and more often than not, it did. A towering drive down the middle, an impossible chip from the rough, a putt that found the center of the cup at exactly the moment it needed to. This phenomenon eventually got a name, the Tiger Effect. And it wasn't just a nickname, it was measurable. Tiger played, more people watched, advertisers paid more to reach them, and networks poured that money straight back into the sport. But television money was just the beginning, because the biggest brands on earth were paying attention too, and what they were about to do would change golf's economy for good. Corporations quickly realized that sponsoring Tiger wasn't the same as sponsoring a golfer. It meant attaching a brand to one of the fastest growing athletes on the planet, reaching young people, international fans, entire audiences golf had never touched before. Endorsement numbers reached levels that had genuinely never existed in the sport. Equipment manufacturers poured money into research and development. Luxury brands entered golf. Mainstream brands entered golf. Companies that had never once considered the sport suddenly wanted a seat at the table. Tiger had become far bigger than an athlete. He'd become an entire industry, and that industry was just getting started. Because once the PGA Tour saw how much value Tiger was creating for everyone else, they realized something simple. If this is what one player is worth, what happens if the tour itself invests even more? That single question would completely reshape professional golf. Everywhere Tiger went, ticket sales climbed. Corporate hospitality sold out. Merchandise moved. Television contracts got more valuable. That new revenue had to go somewhere, and a huge chunk of it flowed straight back to the players. Tournament purses started climbing at a pace the sport had never experienced. Events that once paid a few $100,000 to the winner suddenly paid millions. Winning a single tournament could now change a player's entire financial future. Even golfers who never once competed directly against Tiger got richer because of him. One player had effectively raised the ceiling for every professional who came after. And the effect wasn't limited to money. It reached all the way down into the dirt the courses were built on. As Tiger dominated with power the sport had never seen, golf course architects ran into a real problem. Their most famous courses were suddenly too short. Par 5s became reachable in 2 shots. Fairway bunkers that once forced tough decisions were simply flown over. Doglegs that had shaped strategy for generations became irrelevant. The response became known throughout golf as Tiger proofing. Courses stretched longer. Championship tees moved back. New bunkers appeared. Rough got thicker. Greens got faster. Architects scrambled to challenge the single longest hitter the game had ever produced. Here's the twist though. Those changes didn't just affect Tiger, they changed the game for every golfer who came after him. Even today, some of the longest championship courses on earth owe their design to one man's ability to make an entire sport feel obsolete overnight. But Tiger's biggest influence was never really measured in yards. It was measured in people. Before Tiger Woods, plenty of kids never once imagined golf could be their sport. Then they watched someone who looked different from every champion who came before him. Fist pumps, emotion, power, athleticism. Suddenly golf felt exciting instead of exclusive. Driving ranges filled up with families. Junior tournaments exploded. Parents who never would have introduced their kids to golf bought their first set of clubs. That generation grew into the next stars of the sport. Rory McIlroy, Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas, Scottie Scheffler, Colin Morikawa, Victor Hovland. Ask almost any of them and they'll tell you the same thing. They grew up racing to the television whenever Tiger's name showed up on the leaderboard. Some of them even wearing red on Sundays just like him. Without Tiger, the modern PGA Tour might look completely unrecognizable. His influence didn't stop with the players either. When millions of people suddenly want to swing like the best golfer alive, equipment companies go through their own revolution. Drivers got bigger and more forgiving. Golf balls flew farther while staying controllable. Launch monitors transformed club fitting entirely. Apparel evolved from stiff country club attire into actual athletic performance wear. Innovation accelerated because demand exploded, and the average weekend golfer benefited from technology that might never have existed this fast without the boom Tiger created. By the early 2000s, Tiger Woods was one of the most recognizable athletes on earth. Whether you followed golf or not, networks adjusted broadcast schedules around his tee times. It felt impossible to imagine the sport without him at the center. Then everything changed. In 2009, news about Tiger's personal life dominated headlines worldwide, and what followed was one of the biggest public falls from grace any athlete had ever experienced. Sponsors walked away, some of them practically overnight. Coverage flipped from celebration to criticism almost instantly. The same media that had spent a decade building him into a global icon, now picking apart every detail of his life. Then the injuries piled on. Multiple knee surgeries, back surgeries, long stretches away from competition entirely, sometimes with no clear timeline for when or if he'd come back. There were years when fans genuinely believed they'd already seen Tiger's last meaningful victory, that the story everyone had watched build for over a decade was simply over. Every comeback attempt ended in disappointment. Hope, then another setback. Hope again, then another surgery. The dominant force who'd reshaped an entire sport looked like he was fading out for good, and this time it felt permanent. Then came 2019. Tiger arrived at Augusta National again, but this time nobody expected domination. Most people just hoped for a flash of the player they remembered. Instead, they got one of the greatest comeback stories in the history of sports. As contenders around him stumbled on Sunday afternoon, Tiger stayed patient, shot after shot, hole after hole, until one image became real again. Tiger Woods, wearing the green jacket. When he tapped in that final putt, the roar echoed across Augusta. 14 years after his last Masters win, he'd done it again. It wasn't just a win, it was a reminder of exactly why so many people had fallen in love with this sport in the first place. Today, Tiger no longer dominates every tournament he enters. Younger stars have taken over, and the game keeps evolving without him at the center of it. But his fingerprints are everywhere you look, if you know where to look for them. The enormous purses, the packed galleries, the athletic style of the modern game, the technology inside every new driver, the kids grinding away at public driving ranges on weekend mornings, dreaming of a career that pays like nothing golf ever paid before Tiger came along. Every generation has an athlete who defines greatness inside their sport. Michael Jordan transformed basketball. Wayne Gretzky redefined hockey. Tom Brady changed what longevity looked like in an entire sport. But very few athletes ever reshaped the business, the culture, and the entire future of their game all at once. Tiger Woods did exactly that. He didn't just win 15 major championships and spend hundreds of weeks ranked #1 in the world. He expanded golf's entire audience, rewired its economics from the ground up, and inspired a whole generation of players who might never have picked up a club otherwise. So here's what all of that actually means for you, watching this right now. If you've ever wondered why professional golfers today are chasing purses worth tens of millions of dollars, why every driver on the market claims more distance than the last, or why kids all over the world are suddenly obsessed with a sport their grandparents thought was boring, now you know exactly where that story starts. But golf's next chapter is already being written, and it comes with its own problem. The sport that Tiger built now has to figure out who carries it forward once his generation is gone for good, and whether the next superstar can ever do to golf what he did to it in the first place. That's a story for another video. If you want to see how the sport is answering that question right now, stick around, because we're breaking it down next. 500 years after golf was first played, it took one player to change its future forever. That's why, decades from now, golf history will always be split into two eras: the game before Tiger and the game after Tiger.